Simple Life by Charles Wagner, Chapter 3, Part 1. It is not only in the practical manifestations of our life, but also in the domain of our ideals, that there is a need of clearing. Anarchy reigns in human thought. We walk among the underbrush, without compass or sun, and without direction, lost in the infinity of detail. As soon as man has recognized that he has an aim, and that this aim is to be a man, he organizes his thoughts accordingly. Every mode of thinking, to understand or to judge, which does not make him stronger or better, he throws aside as unwholesome. First of all, he avoids the too common plan of amusing himself with his own thought. Thought is a tool, having its own proper function in the whole. It is not a plaything. Let us take an example. Here is the study of a painter. The implements are all in their places. Everything indicates that the assemblage of means is disposed in view of an aim to reach. Open the door to monkeys. They climb on the benches, hang on the cords, wrap themselves in the draperies, coif themselves with slippers, juggle with brushes, taste the collars, pierce the canvas to see what the portraits have inside their bodies. I do not doubt of their pleasure, but they must surely find this kind of exercise very interesting. But a studio is not made to let monkeys run loose in, nor is thought a ground for acrobatic evolutions. A man worthy of the name thinks as he is, and as his tastes are. He goes into everything with all his heart, and not with that fitful and sterile curiosity, under pretext of wishing to see and know everything, and thereby exposing himself to the risk of never feeling one healthy or deep emotion, or doing one right action. One other habit in urgent need of correction, ordinarily attendant on this fictitious life, is the mania for examining oneself and for analyzing oneself at all times. I do not advise man to neglect the introspective examination of his own conscience. To endeavor to see clearly into one's own mind and motives of conduct is an element essential to right living. But quite other is the vigilance. Another thing, the incessant endeavor to watch one's life and thought and to demonstrate oneself like a piece of mechanism. It is to lose one's time and to lose one's way. The man who, to better prepare himself for a race, would first deliver himself to a minute anatomical examination regarding his powers of locomotion, would risk having his members dislocated before he took one step. You have all that you require to walk with, so go ahead. Take care not to fall. Use your strength with discretion. Seekers for insignificant things and the merchants of scruples reduce themselves to inaction. It suffices to have but a glimmer of common sense to understand that man is not made to pass his life in a Buddhistic trance. Common sense. Do you not find what is designated by that name is becoming as rare as the sensible customs of other days? Common sense is an old story. We must have something new, something else, and we seek it in impossible places. It is a refinement that the vulgar would not understand how to procure, and it is so agreeable to distinguish oneself. Instead of conducting ourselves as a natural person would, who uses the clearly indicated means at his disposal, we reach the most astonishing singularities by the force of genius. They would prefer to be off the track than follow the simple line. All the bodily defects and deformities treated by orthopedy give but a feeble idea of the humps, the twistings, the dislocations we have inflicted upon ourselves in order to escape from the right of good sense. And we learn at our own cost that one does not deform oneself with impunity. Novelty is, after all, ephemeral. There is nothing durable but the eternal commonplace, and if one turns aside, it is to seek the most dangerous adventures. Happy is he who is able to return and learns to become simple again. Good, simple common sense is not, as some think, the inborn property of the first comer, a vulgar and trivial baggage which costs no labor to anyone. I compare it to those old popular songs, imperishable and anonymous, which seem to have come from the very hearts of the people. Good sense is the capital slowly and painfully accumulated by the labor of centuries. It is a pure treasure, which only he understands the value of who has lost it, or who sees people live after having it no longer. For my part, I think no pains too great to take to acquire and guard good sense, to maintain one's eyes clear seeing and one's judgment right. One takes great care of his sword for fear it might be bent or rusted. How much more should he take care of his thought? But let us understand this well. An appeal to good sense is not to such thought as grovels to the earth, to a narrow positivism which denies everything it cannot see or touch. For that is also a lack of good sense, to wish that man should be absorbed in his material sensation and to forget the high realities of the inner life. Here we touch a painful subject, around which the greatest problems of humanity are being agitated. In fact, we are striving to attain to a conception of light. We are seeking it amid 1,000 obscurities and pains, and all that which touches upon the spiritual realities becomes daily more agonizing. In the midst of the grave perplexities and the momentary disorders which accompany great crises of thought, it seems more than ever difficult for man to free himself from the affair with a few simple principles. Yet necessity comes to our aid, as it has done for the men of all times. The program of life is terribly simple, after all, and in the fact that existence is so pressing and that it is imposed on one, it gives us notice that it precedes the idea that we can form for ourselves, and that no one can wait to live until he has first understood. We are everywhere confronted by our philosophies, our explanations, our beliefs, and it is this actual accomplished fact, prodigious and irrefutable, which recalls us to order when we would deduct the life of our reasonings and wait to act until we shall have finished philosophizing. It is this fortunate necessity which hinders the world from stopping while man is in doubt as to his road. Travelers of a day, we are carried along in a vast movement, to which we are called to contribute, but which we have not foreseen, nor embraced in its entirety, nor sounded to its deepest depths. Our part consists in filling faithfully the position of private soldier, which has fallen to us, and our thought should adapt itself to the situation. Do not say that we live in more trying times than did our ancestors, for that, seen from afar, is often badly seen. And besides, it is bad grace to complain of not having been born in one's grandfather's time. What one may think the least contestable on this subject is this. Since the world began, it is troublesome to see it clear. Everywhere and always to think justly has been difficult. The ancients have no privilege in that above the moderns. And we may add that there is no difference between men when one reaches a point where they can be considered from that point of view. Whether a man obeys or commands, teaches or learns, holds a pen or a hammer, it costs him the same to fully discern the truth. The few lights that humanity acquires in its advancement are doubtless of great utility, but they also aggrandize the number and extent of the problems. The difficulty is never removed. The intelligence always meets with the obstacle. The unknown dominates us and draws us to every side. But as one does not need to exhaust all the water of the spring to staunch one's thirst, one does not need to know everything to live. Humanity lives and has always lived on some elementary provisions.